Hi, Ari. I'm Ezelle from the upcoming. It's wonderful to speak to you, and congratulations on this film. It was unexpected, and I absolutely loved it. I found myself crying, laughing, and just really getting involved in it all. It's amazing. So perhaps you could start with sort of a brief introduction to the film, The Return of Anne Frank, and what people can expect when they watch it.
Well, I hope they will be emotional flooded. They will be very surprised because it's not the film you're expecting when you go to see an Anne Frank movie. It's full of it's like full of emotions, but it's also funny in times, obviously tough in times. You're gonna go through a roller coaster of emotions, and maybe you learn something new about life when you see that movie. I hope so. And also, I think it's it's a family movie. It is perfectly fit, as I know now, because UK is the last release we have in the world. That this film is perfectly fantastic for kids starting the age of 9 or 10.
Yeah, I agree, and I think there's been several retellings of the story of Anne Frank over the years, obviously. But what do you think makes this narrative so unique? And how did you get involved in the project in the first place?
Well, when I read it again, when I was offered and refused the project because I thought everything was done about Anne Frank, I read it. I was back then a father of 3 teenagers, and I read it and I was stunned and shocked by the quality of writing, the intelligence of Anne. She was such a great observer about the life of the adults surrounding her. She was a real genius. But she was also a real person. She was not just an icon. She was, beside being super brilliant, she was super funny. She could be very mean. I mean, in the way she could observe the adults around her and see their weaknesses and then throw some arrows in the soft spots. She had a very complex relationship with her mother, like many teenager girls they have. And it was important to show her as this kind of round, lovely person, and not just as an icon, not just as a statue, as she is in the streets of Amsterdam.
Yeah, and so how did you kind of bring Kitty to life and create her as an actual person? How true did you keep her to the way that she was portrayed in Anne Frank's diary?
Well, first, I knew that the solution of telling the story is somewhere in the text, but I didn't know what it was. I started reading the diary excessively every day, and probably on the 50th time that I went into the diary, I read again this one page where she describes Kitty. Everything, her facial expressions, all features, her body features, her characteristics. And I thought, wow, this is a real manual for an art director to design Kitty. Everything is there. Probably the only thing I added was the red hair. Lena Guberman, the art director of the movie, she was drawing her. And once I saw her on the computer screen, it was obvious that she's the storyteller of the movie and not Anne. And this is going to be the new dimension of telling the story.
And obviously you've had success with other animated features that you've done yourself. Why did you choose to work in the same format for this film and work with Lena Guberman? What drew you to her as well?
Well, this film is meant to be for children. It's written like a fairy tale, if you think about it. Second scene of the movie, Kitty is created by ink, words and ink. She's invisible. She's invisible in the house. When she comes out of the house, she materializes. The diary is her heart. When she walks away from the diary, her heart stops beating and she becomes words and ink again. It's a fairy tale story. So it was the only way to do it was animation. What we did change here, and we did very unique. I think for the first time we have a combination of stop motion characters and 2D characters, classic animated characters, hand drawn, and stop motion backgrounds, which were shot in the studio where Isle of Dog and Fantastic Mr. Fox was made in London. And then a composition between the drawings and the real thing that was built and shot with cameras. And I think it gave it a very, very unique kind of look.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think, while Kitty is relaying the story of the Holocaust, she's also sort of focusing on the plight of modern refugees as a key theme in this film. Did you yourself see her as kind of a modern day activist yourself?
Well, absolutely, yes. She falls in love with this guy, Peter, who is an activist. And I think this brings the legacy of Otto Frank, Anne Frank's father, that it's important to learn about the past, but we need to use it to create compassion for children in war zones anywhere. And yes, I think if a few kids go to the cinema or see it at home and they want to be activists like Peter and Kitty, I did my job very well. It happens.
Yeah, I think you have. I think you brought it into a modern world, and it'd be very appealing for kind of a young adult audience as well. Mm-hmm. But also, the Nazis in the film are they're huge, imposing kind of faceless figures with big swastikas on them, snarling dogs by their side. Can you explain why you chose to represent them in this way and not in a more sort of human format?
Well, I got really stuck with the designs of the Nazis in the movie for months. I couldn't, Lena and me, we couldn't figure it out. One Saturday I was at my mother's and I asked her, how did you see the Nazis as a young girl in the camps? And she said one word, they were gods. They were huge, they were perfect, they had perfect proportions, they were beautiful, men and women. And obviously from the very low point of view that we were looking at them back then, they looked like gods. And then she told me that right after the war, she was following the Nuremberg trials of the same commanders of Auschwitz where she was. And she was shocked to see them in real life because all those gods and goddesses that she saw in the camps, some of them were incredibly ugly people and they had nothing to do with her imagination. And I thought it's an interesting way. I took the first part and it's an interesting way to portray the Nazis in the movie. And this is what we did. And also it helped me prevent going into facial expressions of the Nazis in the movie, because once you go into it, you have a statement, a moral statement. What did they feel? Did they understand what was going on? And I didn't want to go into it. It's not part of this specific movie. It's not my story. So blanking them was easier to create it in a way.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. And I think, having had parents that fled the Holocaust yourself, was it a really hard topic to tackle? Were there moments you had to pull yourself back from pushing, the depiction of the atrocities so that you didn't isolate your younger audiences?
To be honest, no, because it's been such part of my life, like a religion, this family, the Holocaust stories and everything. It's like it was no big deal, huh? I mean, no big deal for me emotionally because I'm involved in it since I'm 6 years old. Since I remember myself, I hear these stories. It's there all the time, and it exists also in all my films, previous films, not directly, but as a subtext. So I didn't learn in this movie about new materials. I think the only thing I was exposed for the first time in this movie that I didn't know about was the Hitchcock movie that he edited, footage of British soldiers coming from who released the Bergen-Belsen camp where Anne Frank and her sister died, and he took the footage of the soldiers and he recut it and he did some commentary. This is unwatchable for me. It was so severe and tough. I couldn't watch it. And I was not aware about this material. So it was the first time I was exposed, and it was I can say that this one thing, which I couldn't finish it, watching it, did stun me. But all the rest, I was exposed all my life, I think.
Oh, well, thank you so much for talking to me. And I commend you for bringing another aspect of Anne Frank to the screen. It's a fantastic film. Congratulations. And thank you so much for talking to me. And good luck with it all. Thank you so much.